Have you ever found yourself just, looking up at the night sky and felt that sort of ancient pull? Asking those really big questions like, how did all this begin? The universe? What's it all for? Is there even a point? And maybe the biggest one, where do we fit into this whole cosmic picture? Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to give you that intellectual shortcut, helping you get truly well informed on fascinating topics. And today, we're really diving deep. We're not just skimming the surface, we're going right into one of Western philosophy's most, well, influential and enduring creation stories. We're exploring Plato's cosmology. It's this incredible vision he laid out in his famous dialogue, the Timaeus, which, people still argue about. Now, for this deep dive, we've got some great source material. Excerpts discussing Plato's Cosmogony, giving us a really focused look at this foundational text. And listen, this isn't just some dusty old scroll, the Timaeus. It holds a really unique place in history. I mean, Cicero himself translated it into Latin, and its ideas, they echoed for, well, millennia, especially through the Middle Ages in the West. It shaped how people thought about creation, reality, God, for over 1,000 years. Seriously. So our mission today, it's to unpack Plato's really intricate vision. We want to be your pathway to understanding this complex philosophy. And even though it's ancient, you'll see it has this surprising relevance. Today, we're digging out the key insights, those aha moments that really make things click. Okay, let's get started on this truly epic journey. We're going from the divine mind right down to the geometric atoms of existence itself.
It really is pretty amazing, isn't it? When you think about one single text having that kind of massive impact for such a long time. And looking at the history of philosophy, the Timaeus is particularly striking because, well, for a huge chunk of Western thought, like you said, over 1,000 years, it basically was Plato for many people. It held more influence. It was studied more widely than, well, almost anything else he wrote. It wasn't just another dialogue. It became the main lens, the primary way educated folks, especially in the Middle Ages, understood the cosmos, creation, the whole structure of reality.
That's incredible. More influence than anything else he wrote for centuries. And like you said, you might not realize how much Western thinking about, well, everything creation, reality traces back to this one single dialogue. But the sources also mention something kind of paradoxical, that later on, some of the specific details about the cosmos, well, people started calling them simply silly.
Hmm.
How does that work? Something so foundational, so influential, ends up being partly dismissed as, well, silly. That seems like a real contradiction.
It absolutely does, and it points to a really crucial distinction, doesn't it? It makes you ask, what makes a philosophical text truly influential? Even if its literal scientific details get, overtaken or proven wrong. The Timaeus' power wasn't just about being empirically spot on. I mean, science evolves, right? Its lasting strength was its incredible ability to frame the big questions. It offered this coherent, all-encompassing worldview, trying to explain everything from the universe's origin to the human soul, all in one system. It gave people a language, a set of problems to wrestle with, a sense of cosmic order that just resonated for ages. So the parts deemed silly, often specific scientific guesses, which, yeah, didn't hold up. But that didn't really undermine the whole philosophical framework or the questions it raised. It taught people how to think about the cosmos, even if the answers weren't final.
Okay, so its legacy isn't about having all the right answers forever, but more about the power of its questions and the huge unifying story it told. That makes sense. That's a great insight into how these texts last. Now, speaking of the story, who's telling it? In the Timaeus, we learn it's this character, Timaeus, described as a Pythagorean astronomer. But here's what's really revolutionary, isn't it? He admits he seeks only probability and cannot be sure. His whole account is given in outline. He's talking about probabilities, not some absolute divine truth.
Exactly. That's key. This isn't some prophet handing down unquestionable revelations. It's a philosopher, an astronomer, rooted in Pythagorean thought, presenting what he himself calls a likely story. A reasoned, plausible narrative built on the best thinking and observation available at the time. And what's fascinating is that acknowledgement, even back then, of the limits of human knowledge when you're tackling ultimate origins. It shows this kind of philosophical humility, which is pretty different from many religious texts claiming absolute truth, right? For Plato, speaking through Timaeus, the important thing was the process. The inquiry itself, constructing the most probable coherent account using reason, is more intellectual construction than divine dictation.
And you mentioned the Pythagorean influence. How does that specific school of thought shape his search for probability? What kind of likelihood is he actually looking for?
Good question. The Pythagorean angle is fundamental. For Timaeus, and for Pythagoreans generally, the core belief is that number is the explanation of the world. Deep down, reality is mathematical. So his probable account is going to look for those underlying mathematical patterns. elegant geometry, numerical harmony. That's the structure of reality for him. It means the universe's order, its beauty, even its goodness can ultimately be expressed through math. So the probability isn't just random guessing. It's about finding the most mathematically coherent, the most rationally satisfying explanation. And that raises that interesting question, doesn't it? What does it mean for a philosophy to work with a likely story instead of definitive truth? Especially with these huge questions where certainty is, well, maybe impossible. It allows for refinement, for ongoing inquiry, kind of like how scientific models work today. They're not dogma. They're the best explanation we have, open to being updated. The strength is in the coherence, the explanatory power, not in claiming absolute certainty.
That's a massive difference. And it really does echo how science works now, constantly testing and refining theories. Makes you think about how we tackle the big questions today. Okay, let's shift to the act of creation itself. The sources point out a really critical difference from, say, later Abrahamic traditions that many of us might be more familiar with. Unlike creation ex nihilo, out of absolutely nothing, Plato's god, the demiurge, did not create the world out of nothing, but rearranged pre-existing material. He put intelligence in the soul and the body of the world, making the whole thing a living creature having soul and intelligence. And importantly, there's only one world, not many.
Yes, that distinction is absolutely critical. It fundamentally shapes the whole cosmology and sets it apart. This idea of a divine creator working with stuff that's already there, it implies a different kind of divine power. It's about ordering, organizing, perfecting, not conjuring from a void. Think of it less like pulling a rabbit out of a hat and more like a master craftsman, a sculptor.
Right, like a sculptor working with a block of marble that already exists.
Exactly. A highly skilled sculptor shaping this amazing artwork from a raw, maybe even unruly block of material. That material has its own properties, maybe some resistance. And that would naturally place some limits, some parameters on the sculpture's absolute power to just make it anything they want.
So we're talking about a divine craftsman, an architect, maybe a great artist, not an all-powerful magician. That really changes how you think about God's power in creation itself, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And this pre-existing material, as we'll see later, links up with Plato's idea of necessity. It suggests even God's power isn't totally unlimited. It operates within constraints set by this raw, primordial stuff. The world becomes this ordered cosmos because God, the demiurge, imposes form and intelligence onto this maybe chaotic base material. And that idea of the world as like a living creature having soul and intelligence. That's so important. It's not just dead matter or machine. It's organic, alive, a huge sentient being in itself, with a divine spark. A visible animal containing the visible elements, as the source says. This living single cosmos is proof of the Creator's ordering mind, not his ability to create from nothing.
Wow, that makes the universe feel, well, less like a cold, empty space and more like a giant, intelligent organism. Almost breathing. It really shifts the focus from how it was made to why and what it became. Focusing on the Creator's intentions, the structure he built. Okay, so if God worked with existing material, the next question is, what guided him? What was the plan? The blueprint, which leads us right into our next section, the divine architect and the blueprint of reality. So if God is this good architect, what's his plan based on? The sources say Plato's God is fundamentally good, not jealous at all. He desired that all things should be good and nothing bad as far as possible. He acted being without jealousy, wanting everything as like himself as possible. So the world was made after the pattern of the eternal. It's a created copy designed to accord as closely as possible with the eternal original apprehended by God.
And that takes us straight into the heart of Platonism, doesn't it? The theory of forms, or ideas. God isn't just making up as he goes. He's looking at an eternal, unchanging, perfect pattern. These ideal forms, they exist independently in a realm you can only grasp with pure reason. These forms are ultimate reality, like perfect beauty itself, perfect goodness, perfect justice. So the world we live in, the one we can see and touch, it's literally a created copy of that perfect, eternal original. It's the best possible reflection. A sensible God itself, a visible animal containing the visible elements, as you said. The world's existence is an act of divine goodness, an attempt to bring maximum order and goodness into being, given, the limits of that pre-existing stuff.
So, okay, if our whole world is just a copy trying to be perfect, like a reflection, what does that imply about how we understand reality and our own attempts to be good or find beauty? It's like that architect analogy again, designing a building based on this perfect vision, this blueprint for absolute beauty. The physical building ends up being good, beautiful maybe, but it can never quite be the original unchanging blueprint itself.
That's a perfect way to put it. It means fundamentally that true reality, the ultimate reality, lies beyond our senses. It's in that realm of perfect, unchanging forms. Our world, because it is a copy, is inherently imperfect. It changes, it decays, there's some disorder, but it's always striving to be like that divine perfection. And for us humans, it means our highest goals, pursuing beauty, truth, goodness. They aren't just random whims. They're echoes of that original perfect pattern. Kind of challenges us, doesn't it? To look past the fleeting appearances, to see the ideal underneath the material, and to try and align our own lives with that eternal blueprint. It really gives a deep purpose to philosophy itself.
And within this whole framework, perfect blueprint, created copy, we get one of the most famous, most poetic ideas in the Timaeus. Plato's idea of time. He calls time a moving image of the eternal goods. Let's really dig into that phrase. Moving image of eternity. It sounds amazing, but what does it actually mean for how we experience life? Our past, present, future. The source clarifies. Eternity itself rests in unity. It's unchanging. But time is eternal but moving, according to number. And it gets specific. When you talk about eternal essence, you must not say that it was or will be, only is correct. And here's a wild detail. The sun was created so animals could learn arithmetic by watching days and nights, which led to the concept of time, and hence came philosophy. This is the greatest boon we owe to sight.
That's incredible.
That phrase, moving image of eternity, it packs such a philosophical punch. If we connect it to the bigger picture, like you said, it suggests our whole experience of time, beginnings, endings, past, present, future.
Yeah.
It's all a dynamic reflection of something way more fundamental, something unchanging. Eternity, for Plato, isn't just endless time. It's a state of being, a unified static isness, a timeless present that just is. Time, with all its flow and sequence, its measurable bits, is God's way of bringing a moving, measurable reflection of that static perfection into the created world. It's an image because it moves and changes, but it's eternal because it always exists, and it's ordered by these unchanging numerical rules. It's like a structured unfolding of something that fundamentally doesn't unfold.
So if eternity is the static isness, like one timeless truth, then time is how we see that truth play out in motion. Not just a clock ticking, but like a divine performance of a static perfection. Is that getting close?
That's a really good way to visualize it, yeah. Imagine a perfect, unchanging musical score. That's eternity. Now imagine that score being played, note by note, each moment distinct, but all part of the same eternal composition as time. It shows how even our sense of sequence is this deliberate, ordered reflection of something fundamentally beyond sequence. And that idea about the sun teaching us arithmetic, leading to time, and then philosophy, that's just profound. It puts observing the heavens, the regular cycles of day, night, seasons, right at the foundation of human thought. Our ability to see these rhythms, to count them, measure them, literally opens our minds to abstract thinking, to math, and to philosophy itself. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How much did ancient astronomy, just patiently watching the sky, shape our most basic philosophical ideas? Pushing us towards abstract thought, it suggests our very ability to philosophize is tied to engaging with the universe's predictable numerical order.
That's just mind-blowing to consider, that our ability to think philosophically might be fundamentally linked to watching the sunrise, to seeing the cosmic clockwork turn above us. And it's that same divine ordering principle, that mathematical harmony, that Plato applies to the actual physical stuff of the universe, right? Let's get down to the structure of this cosmos, the world itself. Plato says it's a globe because like is fairer than unlike, and only a globe is alike everywhere. Perfect shape in its motion. Circular, of course, also perfect, and it's made of the familiar four elements: fire, air, water, and earth. But crucially, they're not just jumbled together. The sources say they're represented by a number are in continued proportion, like fire is to air as air is to water and as water is to earth. This precise mathematical ratio, Plato says, causes it to have the spirit of friendship and therefore to be indissoluble except by God.
Yeah, here you really see Plato weaving his aesthetic and mathematical ideals right into the universe's DNA, choosing a sphere in circular motion. That wasn't random. It reflects his deep belief that perfection lies in symmetry, self-containment, eternal repetition. A sphere is the most uniform shape, no beginning or end. Circular motion is continuous, uninterrupted. It mirrors the unchanging forms as closely as possible in the material world. It's the ultimate cosmic elegance, self-sufficiency.
So it's not just a planet floating there, it's like a perfectly crafted spinning sphere, a self-contained piece of art.
Exactly. And that continued proportion between the elements fire, air, water, earth, it's not just physics. It implies this deep cosmic harmony, a mathematical binding force, holding it all together, ensuring stability. This mathematical relationship, this spirit of friendship, is like the glue holding the universe together, making it so robust that only God could take it apart. It's a universe that's simultaneously art and applied mathematics, all woven together, like perfect musical harmony from mathematical ratios, or the symmetry of a crystal. For Plato, that mathematical foundation is the universe, designed for perfection and endurance within material limits. So from this grand, harmonious cosmic sphere, let's zoom in now. Let's focus on the human element, our own place in this divinely ordered system.
Okay, so we've got this vast cosmic sphere, beautifully designed. Now let's find ourselves within it. Where do humans fit in? The sources paint a really fascinating picture of where our souls come from and what our journey is like. Apparently, the creator made one soul for each star. Wow, these souls were then scattered, God putting some souls on Earth, some on Moon, some on other planets and stars. And when a soul arrives here on Earth, it gets sensation, love, fear, and anger, basically. The full package of human experience. And our life here, it's explicitly a test. If we overcome these passions, we live righteously. If we don't, well, we live badly. And this is where it gets really wild, the whole transmigration reincarnation thing. It's explicit and detailed. The text warns, if you live badly as a man, in the next life, be a woman. And if he or she keeps messing up, he or she will become a brute like an animal and keep going through lives until at last reason conquers. And it gets super specific about intellectual pursuits. Even those ignorant, light-minded men who think astronomy, mathematics can be learned by looking at stars become women in next life. Ouch. And those who have no philosophy become wild land animals. The very stupidest will become fishes. Ow. So seriously, your cosmic path could lead to being a fish if you don't hit the philosophy books.
It's this incredibly rich mix, isn't it? Ethics, cosmology, psychology, all tightly woven together in Plato's system. The idea that our souls have this divine, starry origin tied to a specific star implies we have this innate potential for reason, for goodness, a connection to the cosmic order. It suggests our true home isn't really Earth, and this life is just one crucial step in a much, much longer journey. And our moral choices here, they're not just personal, they directly shape the soul's future lives within this carefully designed system aimed at spiritual growth, leading eventually back to reason. It's a powerful system of moral accountability. And it prompts that big question, doesn't it, about moral responsibility in a divinely ordered universe. Plato's setup provides this kind of cosmic justice. Your actions have real long-term consequences, guiding the soul back towards this rational, divine nature. Now, those specific transmigration examples, yeah, they sound pretty harsh, maybe a bit prescriptive to us now.
But they give huge insights into Platonic values and maybe the society he lived in. They scream the importance of reason, philosophy, intellectual work, especially math and astronomy, as the highest human calling. If you fail to pursue knowledge or live irrationally, you descend through these life forms. But each life is another chance to learn, to finally let reason win. So it's not just punishment, it's more like a transformative process, a cosmic school designed to teach the soul mastery over itself so it can finally return home to its star.
Right, not just karma, but a whole cosmic curriculum designed to refine the soul, teach it reason, get it back in sync with the divine order. That gives incredible weight to our choices, doesn't it? And speaking of reason, Plato also gives us this detailed map of the human soul itself. He splits it in two. Man possesses two souls, one immortal, the other mortal. The immortal soul, made by God, lives in the head. Makes sense, the seat of intellect. But the mortal soul, made by lesser gods, lives in the breast. And this one is subject to terrible and irresistible affections like pleasure, the greatest incitement to evil, pain, stopping us from good, rashness and fear, two foolish counselors, anger, hard to calm, hope, easily misled. These feelings, he says, are mixed with irrational sense and all-daring love according to necessary laws.
This is Plato's really complex psychology, but it still feels surprisingly relevant today, right? It gives us a way to think about our own inner conflicts. The immortal, rational soul connects us to the divine, seeks truth, aligns with that cosmic order God understands through pure thought. It's our unchanging essence, pure reason. The mortal soul, though, is tied to the body, to fleeting experiences. It's driven by desires, passions, raw emotions, pleasure, pain, fear, anger, hope, powerful forces, often overwhelming. And that internal battle between our higher rational self and our lower appetitive self, that's absolutely central to being human, to moral growth in Plato's view. Those necessary laws governing the affections, they aren't inherently good or bad. They're just the way these bodily feelings work, kind of mechanically. And they often lead us astray if reason isn't in charge.
So, thousands of years ago, Plato was nailing that internal struggle we all feel. The tug of war between logic and our immediate wants and fears. It makes me think of his famous chariot analogy from the Phaedrus. You know, reason as the charioteer trying to control two horses, one noble representing higher emotions, the other wild and unruly representing our basic desires.
That analogy perfectly captures this idea of the two souls, makes it really concrete. The charioteer's job is to control and harmonize those courses, to steer the soul's journey. If you fail, life becomes chaotic, unrighteous, and that has direct consequences for your next life, your next transmigration. It really frames our inner world as this constant battlefield. Mastering ourselves by cultivating reason isn't just an intellectual game. It's crucial for living well, for spiritual progress, for our whole cosmic evolution back to where we started. Self-mastery becomes this profound philosophical and ethical duty.
Which brings us to another fundamental tension in Plato's universe, this dynamic between mind and necessity. Plato talks about two kinds of causes. First, those that are intelligent, driven by mind, producing good and order. Second, those that, being moved by others, are, in turn, compelled to move others. These produce chance effects and are called necessity. So the universe is explicitly made up of necessity and mind. But here's the kicker, the part that often surprises people. Necessity is not subject to God's power. Things that happen through necessity are chaotic and not subject to laws.
Yeah, this concept is absolutely vital for understanding why, even in a world made by a good God, there's still imperfection, disorder, things we might see as evil or just random. Necessity here isn't like modern deterministic laws of physics. It's more like the inherent stubbornness, the raw, unyielding, maybe chaotic nature of that pre-existing material the demiurge had to work with. It's the brute fact of matter itself,
Sure.
resisting perfect form. The inherent stuff that has its own properties, not always aligned with divine order. Even God's intelligence has to wrestle with these basic, sometimes chaotic forces. Think back to that potter analogy. Mind is the potter. Necessity is the clay. The clay might have flaws, air bubbles, maybe it's too wet or too dry. It resists being shaped perfectly. It has its own nature that limits what the potter can ultimately achieve. The potter's skill guides the creation of a beautiful pot, aiming for perfection. But the clay's own properties create constraints. That's the tension at the heart of creation, the struggle between ordering intelligence and this unruly, independent material. It explains why the world, though a noble copy, isn't perfect. Why not everything is purely good or perfectly ordered. It's a universe of design, grappling with an underlying inherent randomness.
So even in this divine plan, there's this built-in acknowledgement of randomness or matter just doing its own thing sometimes. That adds a real layer of complexity. Okay, so we looked at the big picture, the human soul, this tension between mind and necessity. Now let's dive into maybe the most specific and, for many, the most surprising part. The idea that the universe is fundamentally geometric. When we think ancient elements, we usually picture earth, air, fire, water. And yeah, that was the standard view for a long time. But Plato, always the deep thinker, goes way beyond that. He tries to find the real fundamental building blocks. Our sources say he argues that earth, air, fire, and water are not the first principles or letters or elements at all. Instead, the true elements of the material world are much more abstract, more elegant. They're geometric shapes. Specifically, two sorts of right-angled triangles. One is half a square, that's an isosceles right triangle, two equal sides. The other is half an equilateral triangle, a specific scaling right triangle. And God, the demiurge, fashioned them by form and number out of the initial chaos. These triangles are the deepest layer of order.
This is Plato's incredibly sophisticated, almost breathtaking attempt at a mathematical atomic theory, centuries before anything like modern atoms were conceived. He's looking for the ultimate irreducible bits of matter, not in substances, but in pure geometry, in mathematical form. Why triangles? Well, they're the simplest polygons, the most basic shapes you can use to build up everything else, flat or solid. This fits perfectly with that Pythagorean idea Timaeus represents. Number is the explanation of the world. For Plato, reality's deepest level isn't just stuff. It's elegant math, form, proportion. These triangles are like the alphabet of the cosmos.
So forget tiny solid balls as atoms. We should picture these tiny indivisible triangles, like the ultimate universal Lego bricks that build everything.
Exactly. Or think about pixels on a screen. Each one simple, but together they create complex images. These triangles are the basic components from which all the complexity we see emerges. From just these two kinds of right triangles, God constructs the entire fabric of the physical world. It's a truly elegant, deep mathematical foundation for reality.
Okay, so what do these fundamental triangles build? The sources say that by combining them in specific ways, you can make 4 of the 5 regular solids, and Plato assigns these perfect geometric shapes to the elements we know. Fire, tetrahedron; air, octahedron; water, icosahedron; earth, cube. And then there's that 5th one, the dodecahedron. It's special, used for the delineation of the universe, maybe a 5th element. It has pentagons for its faces and acts as a symbol of the universe.
This is just a stunning demonstration of how Plato connects math, cosmology, and the physical world. These 5 Platonic solids. They're unique geometric forms. They're irregular polyhedrous, all faces, are identical regular polygons. The same number of faces meet at each corner, they're convex. Their perfect symmetry made them the ideal building blocks of an ordered cosmos. And Plato assigns each one to an element, often based on its properties. Like the sharp points of the tetrahedron that's a pyramid with 4 triangle faces that's perfect for the piercing nature of fire. Or the stability of the cube with its 6 square faces that obviously fits Earth. The octahedron, 8 triangles, and icosahedron, 20 triangles, get assigned to air and water, representing different degrees of mobility or smoothness. It's a universe that's art and math woven together at the most basic level.
So they aren't just random shapes. The tetrahedron, sharp like a pyramid, 4 triangle faces. Plato saw that as fire, maybe because fire pierces. And the cube, solid, stable, that's Earth. What did those shapes tell him about the elements themselves?
Precisely. The assignments weren't random at all. The geometry was meant to directly reflect how the elements seem to behave. Fire, sharp, mobile, penetrating, fits the pointedly stable tetrahedron. Earth, stable, solid, unmoving, perfect match for the sturdy cube. Water and air, more fluid than Earth but less sharp than fire, get the more complex but still elegant octahedron and icosahedron. For Plato, the very structure of reality is rooted in these divine shapes. Form dictates function and behavior. So next time you see crystal, you'll know Plato saw those perfect shapes as the essence of existence. The basic language of the cosmos, it's a vision where the physical world is literally built from math.
Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting and maybe a bit complicated. There's a geometric puzzle right there in the text. Our source points out this fascinating detail. The regular tetrahedron, octahedron, and icosahedron have equilateral triangles for their faces. The dodecahedron has regular pentagons and cannot therefore be constructed out of Plato's 2 triangles. Interest. This discovery about the solids was apparently made by Theaetetus, a mathematician Plato knew, making it a recent discovery when the Timaeus was written. The text even notes the Timaeus contains much that is obscure and has given rise to controversies. So the dodecahedron, the symbol of the whole universe, can't be made from the same basic triangles as the other 4 elements. That seems like a big deal mathematically.
It is a big deal. And what's truly fascinating is that Plato, through Timaeus, acknowledges this limitation right in his own model. It's not a mistake he missed. It's part of the story, highlighting the rigor of Greek mathematics back then. The dodecahedron is different. Its faces are pentagons. And you simply cannot build regular pentagons using only the 2 specific right triangles that Plato uses for the faces of the other 4 solids, which were all made of triangles. So it raises that important question. What does this mathematical quirk mean for the dodecahedron's role? And what does it say about the limits of even a divine mathematical universe when you hit geometriality? It really implies a fundamental difference, doesn't it? Since you can't break it down into the same elemental triangles, maybe it exists on a different level, or represents a different kind of reality than the 4 basic elements. Its special status, used for the delineation of the universe, a symbol of the universe, really gains weight here. Maybe it's not just another element, but the container, the overall structure holding everything else. Precisely because its geometry is distinct, maybe more encompassing. It shows this amazing intellectual honesty, acknowledging where the perfect mathematical system ran into real, unavoidable challenges, even within this beautiful, idealized framework. It's about pursuing truth, even when it complicates your theory. So from this incredibly detailed geometric foundation, let's broaden out again to the bigger philosophical and ethical implications of living in a universe like this.
That mathematical detail makes Plato's vision even more fascinating, more intellectually honest. It's not just perfect theory, it deals with real complexities. Okay, let's talk practical implications. What does this mean for knowledge? Plato's epistemology, his theory of knowledge, is key here, the sources say. What is changing is apprehended by intelligence and reason. What is unchanging is apprehended by opinion. Wait, I think I read that wrong. Let me recheck. Oh, okay, got it. It's actually, what is unchanging is apprehended by intelligence and reason. What is changing is apprehended by opinion with the help of sensation. That makes more sense with the forms, and it clarifies. If mind isn't the same as true opinion, then knowledge must be knowledge of essences, meaning essences can't just be names. True opinion is implanted by instruction, essence is apprehended by reason, and ultimately, mind is the attribute of the gods and of a very few among men. This framework also has a curious theory of space, seeing it as intermediate between the world of essence and the world of transient, sensible things.
Yes, that's core Plato, and it shapes how we should approach understanding anything. True knowledge, episteme, isn't about the fleeting world our senses perceive, that changing world. It only gives us doxa, opinion, unreliable, because it's based on things that don't last. Real knowledge is about those eternal unchanging forms, the perfect blueprint we talked about. And you only get there through pure reason, pure intelligence, not your senses. So the goal of philosophy, to get beyond mere opinion, to reach this higher, reliable knowledge, which is hard. Only a few manage it, making them more like the gods who possess pure mind.
So it's like the difference between seeing a shadow on the cave wall versus understanding the real object casting the shadow. One is just opinion based on senses, the other is knowledge of the true thing. Or like knowing a scientific law versus just hearing popular beliefs.
Exactly. The philosopher tries to move from the shadows of opinion, the shifting sands of sense experience, towards the light of true knowledge, grasping the unchanging realities behind the surface appearances. And that curious theory of space being intermediate, that's crucial too. It addresses the problem of how the perfect, ideal forms connect to the messy, material world. Space acts like a receptacle. Plato sometimes called it a wet nurse. It's the medium that allows the forms to be imperfectly reflected or embodied in matter. It holds the temporary copies. It's the stage where the imperfect reflection happens.
That's a powerful way to think about what true understanding really is and how hard it might be to achieve. So influential. Now, what about morality? Cosmic justice. The sources say Plato accepted the problem of evil, which kind of helped him avoid the problem of evil, which troubles Christian theology. We know the transmigration details are meant seriously, not just metaphors. And there's that quirky detail again. The purpose of the intestines is to prevent gluttony by keeping food in, tied into another account of transmigration.
This really shows how deeply Plato weaves ethics right into his cosmology, even into our bodies. The universe isn't just physically ordered, it's profoundly morally ordered. The problem of evil for Plato isn't a flaw in God's work or proof of a bad God. It mostly comes from necessity, that stubborn material resisting perfect order, and from the choices made by finite beings, us, within a system designed for eventual good. Evil comes from material imperfection, and the soul failing to let reason control its mortal passions. And transmigration, moving through different lives based on how you lived. That's the universe's self-correcting educational system. It ensures all souls, eventually, over maybe countless lives, progress towards reason and virtue, reach their potential, and return to their starry origins.
So for Plato, understanding the universe wasn't just thinking about stars and triangles, it was a roadmap for living a good life, for spiritual growth. Even our guts have a moral purpose in the grand scheme. That feels incredibly holistic.
Absolutely. It's a universe with built-in moral feedback loops. Consequences aren't just punishments, they're formative guiding souls towards their higher selves. Every part, from the biggest planet down to, the intestines slowing digestion to help reason control appetite, everything serves a purpose in this huge, ethically charged cosmic order. It's a totally holistic view.
Yeah.
The physical, the spiritual, the ethical, they're all completely intertwined, all pointing towards the ultimate goal, living rationally and virtuously.
Okay, as we wrap up this deep dive, let's think about the Timaeus' lasting impact, its echoes in Western thought. The sources rightly say it deserves to be studied because of its great influence on ancient and medieval thought, and this influence is not confined to what is least fantastic. That core idea, the created world as a copy of an eternal archetype, that was a powerful tool for centuries.
The influence is just immense. It goes way beyond whether his specific science held up. Even when people moved past his exact models, the Timaeus gave Western thought these fundamental conceptual tools, ideas like a rational good creator, a universe ordered by math, the difference between a perfect original and an imperfect copy, the idea of a world soul. These profoundly shaped Neoplatonism, which was huge in the Roman Empire. And it really resonated with early Christian thinkers wrestling with creation, God as craftsman, the problem of evil. Later, even during the scientific revolution, that underlying Platonic belief in a mathematically understandable cosmos. It kept inspiring people like Kepler, Newton, searching for the universe's mathematical laws. Different context, sure, but the echo of Plato's vision was there. It just shows the power of a coherent philosophical vision. Even one with parts later seen as silly, its big questions, and the elegant way I tried to answer them, they still echo, proving that even a likely story can shape how people see reality for thousands of years.
And it leaves us with so much to think about, doesn't it? We've journeyed through Plato's cosmology today, this vision of a good creator ordering chaos, making a living, spherical universe based on geometry. We've looked at time as that moving image of unchanging eternity. We traced the soul's journey from the stars through lifetimes towards reason, and we saw that deep connection between a rational, moral universe and our own ethical lives within it. This ancient text, the Timaeus, even now, it offers this incredibly rich way to think about existence, creation, reality itself, shaping debates that are still happening. So after diving deep into Plato's cosmic vision, here's a final thought for you to chew on. If our whole visible world is, as Plato saw it, a carefully made but imperfect copy of some eternal perfect blueprint, what responsibility does that put on us? Not just as residents here, but maybe as artists or architects of our own lives, always striving maybe to align our fleeting material realities with those timeless ideal forms. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it sparked some aha moments and gave you plenty to consider. Until next time, keep exploring the universe, both the one out there and the one within.